Good day everyone, my name is Desiree Sirongkialia and today we're talking about the three dimension of globalization, the political, cultural, and economic dimension. We also tackle about the globalization, which is the increasing interconnectedness of the world's economic cultures and populations driven by cross borders trade technology like the internet, investment, and the movement of people and information, creating a more integrated global market and society. Now let's move on to the first dimension, which is the political dimension. It is refers to the increasing interconnectedness and the interdependence of political activities, institutions, and process across national borders. In simple terms, it means countries increasingly working together through organization and agreement. Also, political dimension has key aspects, which is international relation, global governance, and political ideologies. International relation is how countries deals with each other, friendly or not. Global governance, it is the organization like the United Nations that try to solve the global problems. When we're talking about the political ideologies, it is the ideas about how the government should work spreading around the world. Example of that is in working, it is the democracy of a citizen. Now let's move on to the example of the political dimension. We have here the United Nations, regional organization, international treaties, non-governmental organization. The United Nations, we all know it is a place where the countries can discuss the problems, or it is an organization. When we're talking about the international treaties, it is the agreements between countries, trade, environment, and so on. NGO, it is a non-governmental organization that work on human rights. And just like any other dimension, it had merits and demerits. So we have here the positive impact of political dimension, which tells about the increased international cooperation and diplomacy, promotion of peace and security, spread of democratic values and human rights, addressing global challenges like climate change, poverty, and terrorism. That's the positive impact of political dimension. However, the negative effect of political dimension are potential loss of national sovereignty and autonomy, rise of global governance structure that may lack accountability, influence of powerful countries on weaker ones, challenges to national identity in cultural diversion, which is tells about losses of some independence or negative effect of political dimensions. So much for that in political dimension. We will dive into economic dimension. Economic dimension, it is the result of human innovation and technological progress. It is refers to the increasing integration and encompasses around the world, particularly through the movements of goods and services. In simple terms, economic dimension, talking about the world becoming one big market with easier trade and investment. The key aspects of economic dimension is international trade, foreign and direct investment, global supply chain, and financial markets. The international trade, it is the buying and selling goods between countries. Foreign direct investment, talking about the countries from one companies rather from one country investing in another. Global supply chain, it is products made in many different countries. Financial markets, talk about the banks and investment operating globally. So the example of economic dimension, multinational corporation, international trade agreements, global supply chain, and foreign direct investment. When we're talking about multinational corporation, it is the companies like McDonald's that operate in many countries. Trade agreements, again, it is the agreement between countries to reduce tariffs or taxes rather on goods. Um, Global supply, talking about the products in made in many different countries. Okay. The positive impact of economic dimension is increased economic growth and development, lower prices for consumer due to increased competition, greater access to goods and services from around the world, increase innovation and technology. So basically, the positive impact of economic dimension is having an economic growth and development of a country or the economy. However, the negative effect of economic dimension is increased inequality between and within countries, exploitation of workers in developing countries, sweep shops, environmental degradation due to increased production and consumption, financial instability, and economic crisis spreading rapid across the border. So if the economic are not handled well, they maybe increase the inequality and the exploitation. Also, the economic has crisis spreading across the borders. Now let's move on to the cultural dimension. In increase in the amount of cultural flows across the globe, cultural interconnectedness are at the foundation of contemporary globalization. In simple terms, cultural dimension means sharing of ideas, customs, and entertainment globally. The key things or key aspects of cultural dimension was media, entertainment, food, fashion, and language. Media is movies, TV, or music spreading globally. Entertainment, sport, games becoming popular worldwide. And also food, fashion, language, it is a trend spreading across the borders. So the example of cultural dimension are the dominance of Hollywood movies and Western music, the spread of fast food chain like McDonald's and Starbucks, the adoption of global fashion trends, the increasing use of English as a global language, the popularity of social media platforms like Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. The positive impact of cultural dimension is increased cultural exchange and understanding, exposure to new ideas and perspective, hybridity, and the creation of new cultural forms, greater awareness of global issue and challenges. When we're talking about hybridity, it is the blending of distinct elements like cultural, racial, linguistic, biological to form new mix or composite entities, challenging pure or separate categories and creating unique cultural forms, identities, and practices. However, the negative effect or impact of cultural dimension or cultural homogenization, the dominance of Western culture, laws of local tradition and languages, cultural appropriation, the adoption of elements of a minority culture by members of the dominant culture, the spread of consumerism and materialism. So, When we're talking about the homogenization, it is the process where the distinct local cultures become increasingly similar, losing unique traits as they adopt elements from a dominant global culture, often Western American culture, through media, products, and ideas, leading to less cultural diversity worldwide. However, when we're talking about the spread of consumerism and materialism, it is individuals' excessive focus on possessions as a source of happiness and succession, while the consumerism, it is a societal system encouraging the constant acquisition of goods and services. In conclusion to our discussion, globalization, as manifested through its political, economic, and cultural dimensions, present a complex and often contradictory reality. While it fosters interconnectedness, cooperation, and access to new ideas and opportunities, it also poses challenges to national sovereignty, cultural diversity, and economic equality. Understanding this multifaceted impacts is crucial for navigating the complexities of the contemporary world and striving for a more equitable and sustainable form of globalization. I hope you learned something today. Thank you for watching and God bless.